I'm not sure how to say it. Good morning, good afternoon. It's almost the afternoon, right? So thank you very much for coming to this panel, which I hope it's a little bit different than what you are used to seeing here in Perugia at the International Journalism Festival. This is going to be a panel about investigative reporting, journalism in general, and how to turn investigative reporting into video games, engaging video games, to both go to a wider public and to try to find also sustainable financial models for an industry like the investigative reporting that is suffering for many, many reasons. So I'm here with my co-panelists. I'm Paul Radu. I'm the co-founder of the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. We are a network of investigative reporters, editors, technologists working on 6 continents against organized crime and against high-level corruption. I'm here with my colleagues who will introduce themselves, and you'll see what's the logic of this panel, why we are all here on this stage, because we all make a team. We all work on the same issue. So, Lot, yeah. Would you like to?
I'm Lot. I'm from Foundation Veronica, and we're based in the Netherlands. And we are an independent fund which focuses on strengthening the journalistic ecosystem in Europe. And we do it in 2 ways. So we support journalistic companies and help them also in creating revenue streams, but we also invest quite commercially on the infrastructural side. So that's our main business.
Thank you, Lot. So we have the business brain on my left-hand side. Now we'll go to my far right side, where we have Nacho.
Hi,
please.
My name is Nacho Armenter. I come from Barcelona. I'm a founder of a company called Good Game Generation, where we try to approach gaming from a more positive way, trying to bridge video games for new generations, for them to have newer approaches and find new video games where to find new stories and to help people understand that gaming can have a really positive impact in our society.
Thank you, Nacho. And last but not at all least, on my right here, Jeff, please introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Kelly Lowenstein, the founder and executive director of the Center for Collaborative Investigative Journalism, or CCIJ. I also teach journalism at Grand Valley State University in Michigan. And at CCIJ, we do 3 things, all of which try to strengthen journalism to strengthen democracy. So we commission investigative work on key issues with visual, data, and investigative journalists as equal partners. We work with journalists and work to support them who are working and living in dangerous situations. And the third part, which really speaks to this panel today, is that we work to build individual and newsroom capacity. And we work to do that through trainings. With the team members, we work to see what their dreams are and how we can integrate them in the work that we do. And we also work to build products that then can expand and have a wider reach. So the video game work that we've done here is part of that. And I'm very happy and honored to be on this panel with the panelists. And also I'm very excited because Serena Stellitano, our XR Director of Immersive Storytelling, she and I have worked together for 5 years. She's the person who did all the work on the game. This is the first time we're seeing each other in person, so I'm very honored to be here with all of you and with Serena. Can we please acknowledge Serena and my wife sitting next to her? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. So we have the business brain, we have the gaming brain, we have the journalism brain. I'm not sure what that makes me. Probably the interviewer or something like that, something in between, right? I'll go into describing a little bit the project that we all started together, that we're all working together right now. It's called Floodlight Gaming. It's an idea to turn investigative reporting into video games. Intellectual property that's generated by journalists, to turn it into engaging, commercially viable video games. We started this project last year, and with a clear goal. We want to get to more audience because we believe that the stories uncovered the stories put together by investigative reporters are exceptional. I mean, truth is very often stranger than fiction. And this is what we're counting on with creating this pipeline, this conduit between investigative reporting and the video gaming industry. Now, just a few numbers. For those of you who are not familiar with the video gaming market, this is a huge market, and we'll hear a little bit more about this from the gaming brain, from the game developer, from Nacho. But just in terms of numbers, it's a huge market. It's basically bigger, larger than both the music and the film markets combined. So video gaming is huge. Now, we're not even tackling this huge market that you see here in the hundreds of billions. We're actually aiming at a much smaller market that's still, way, way, way bigger than all the journalism market. We're looking for the alternative gaming market. That's what we're tackling with this project. So we're very kind of down to earth. We have a very clear approach, where we want to, first enter that market, and later, who knows? I mean, there's a lot of potential in it. How it works, I think, just to describe really briefly the process, because we defined a 7 steps process. Like, as I mentioned, we started last year with the first edition of Floodlight Gaming. And Floodlight Gaming is part of a larger Floodlight project, where we also turn investigative reporting into fiction film. And we work with the Gabriel Garcia Marquez Foundation out of Cartagena to turn our investigative IP, our investigative stories into fiction film. And I'm always saying this, the patron saint, let's say, of Floodlight is Gabriel Garcia Marquez, because Gabriel Garcia Marquez was first an investigative reporter, and then he became one of the best fiction writers in the world. So he's kind of, the leader of this, of this movement to turn investigative reporting into fiction products, including gaming. So what we do is we ask journalists from all over the world to send us their proposals. What do they want to see turned into a video game? What is their best work? How can they best contribute to this relationship with the game developers to turn that investigative reporting, into video games? Now, we have this call for proposals. We get the proposals. We have a jury. The people here on this stage, are part of that jury. We go through the stories. We select usually 10, 12 of those stories. We put them in a catalog after editing them, after working with Nacho, after working with others, to put them in a very nice format that would speak to the game developers. And then that catalog goes to game developers who sign an NDA first with us, because even if these stories, most of the stories in the catalog have been published already, the idea behind Floodlight and what really powers Floodlight is the relationship between the investigative reporter, the authors of the stories, and the game developers. So we give them 1 month to have a dialogue between them, a very deep dialogue where the investigative reporter goes way beyond what was published. But they need to ensure that there's trust and that there's some assurance that what they will share with the game developers will not go, out, will not become public. So that's very important for us because, let's say you have an investigation where you expose this huge organized crime group, but you also know a lot of details about the personal life, of some of the criminals. Now, you'd never use that in your investigative reporting for many reasons. Legal reasons, space, time constraints, others. You can share, though, that information with the game developer for them to be able to develop the characters in game. So we're establishing these trust pipelines, these trusted connections between the game developers and the investigative reporters. And as a result of that, at the end of that month of collaboration, we get a gaming prototype. Something that's clickable, something that's already playable, maybe 15 minutes of gameplay, maybe half an hour, maybe 1 hour. And this is what surprised me with the first Floodlight gaming process. In 1 month time, we we already got games that were playable. You know, it was amazing. You know, my organization is one of the largest in the world when it comes to investigative reporting, and it takes us, you know, sometimes 1 month to create an infographics. And the video gamers came with a prototype that was playable in that month. I was like, wow, this is speed. This is an industry that has speed, an industry where the creativity is just, you know, enormous. Now, I mentioned, you know, that we had this game jam previously. We had a summit. We always have a panel attached to these gaming events where we have game developers and investigative reporters to bridge a connection between the two industries, where the game developers talk about how gaming works, how the market works, what are the pitfalls. There are lots of issues in that market as well as in the investigative reporting market, right? There are, you know, in every market where you have edge cases like the investigative reporting or a lot of money in creativity as the gaming market, you know, there will be things that you might want to know that have to do with the legal side of things, with the business side of things, and we'll go into that a little bit later. Now, of course, as investigative reporters, you know, to start a project like this, you need valuable partners. You need partners who have an insight into how investigative reporting works, how the video gaming industry works. And you need to have partners who can finance this and who are willing to take a risk with this type of initiatives. So creating this entrepreneurial group and entrepreneurial idea around the investigative journalism IP is key, I believe, to a big part of what might be the future of journalism. So these are some of our partners. You see here, for instance, we work with Anima Interactive. Carla Reyes, who's the leader of Anima Interactive, she used to work for Niantic, Pokemon, for those of you who know. Nacho, obviously, you know, and others, and the International Gaming Association, Spielfabrik, who's ensuring incubation of these prototypes. You know, so it's very important to think the process, you know, from one end to the other, because organizing game jams are these meetings between investigative reporters and video game developers, you know. That's not necessarily very hard to organize those meetings, but working with the products that come out of those type of interactions, that's where the hard work starts. So that's where you have to think about, you know, avenues to further develop the games. Are they going to be games for the Steam platform? Are they going to be in-browser games? Are they going to be developed, you know, with gaming studios? Do we become developers ourselves to develop these games? So there are lots of questions, and we'll try to answer some of those questions. I'll end my initial talk by saying that right now we're in the midst of the second Floodlight Gaming process. We already selected 13 stories. We have the catalog. The catalog already went to the game developers. There's ongoing dialogue as we sit here between the game developers and the journalists to develop those prototypes that will come out, I believe, in about 2 weeks. There's still 2 weeks to get to those. And we will have this year's event with the announcement of the prizes. There's a big prize for a game developing team with the announcement of the finalists in Rotterdam at the Indigo Festival. This is the largest video gaming festival in the Benelux countries. And then we'll also have a presence at Gamescom, which I'm sure many of you know is the biggest gaming festival in the world, and we got invited by the Dutch pavilion to be part of that event. So we'll have a lot of exposure, you know, this spring, this summer with Floodlight Gaming, and our hope is to go from the 2 games that are under development right now, that we will highlight right away, to more games being developed between the investigative reporting industry and video gaming. I'll just say that this edition of Floodlight is also focused on in-browser games. These are games that investigative reporting centers or media organizations or civil society organizations can place on their website to attract a younger audience, to maybe create, you know, some avenues for financing, calls for donations in-game, and so on. So we're thinking all of what we're doing here is to the benefit of the public and to the benefit of the investigative reporting industry and the video gamers that work with us. Let me play you like quickly to show you what kind of games may come out of this cooperation. This is going to be, I think, a 2-minute clip. This is called Dark Money, and isn't it a little bit ironic? This is going to be a game that will launch to market in January or February next year. It's a Steam game, and my hope is that Dark Money will make money for the investigative reporting industry. So let's see if it comes true.
Most of the dialogue in Dark Money happens through this cryptex phone, which is a phone for criminals to communicate. This allows us to manage the scope of the game by avoiding voiceovers and also makes localization much easier. We can simply swap in a new InkScript file in the different languages that we use. The trusted friend, seen here, offers a tutorial to the player as well as their introduction to the game. The core mechanic is laundering money by moving it from a dirty source through an intermediary so that it can be spent cleanly. This starts off as a fairly hands-on process, but as the game progresses, the player is able to hire employees to automate their systems and upgrade their various nodes. Some of the upgrades happen through a series of tech trees, which affect the laundering mechanics, the journalistic mini-games, and also the dialogue. The game isn't just about crime, but journalism as well, such as this mini-game inspired by mini-games in Dredge. Another mini-game requires the player to compare two aerial photographs, identifying changes and inconsistencies in the story of a source. The game takes place in multiple locations, and the player uses a globe screen to navigate between them and track their progress. The game's UI integrates with the world in different ways. For example, if one of the player's businesses is under investigation, we might see a police helicopter descend at the same time as the investigation proceeds. Eventually, the player's assets might be frozen if they don't respond quickly enough. That's a quick glimpse of our early gameplay. Hope you enjoyed.
So this is Dark Money. Thank you. We are developing Dark Money together with Polyvale Studios and with V-Venture, with Lot here. And the idea is, with video games, it's quite interesting because, as I mentioned, Floodlight also has a part that turns investigative reporting into fiction film. But the major difference between turning investigative reporting into film or video games is that in video games, you put yourself in the shoes. You are the actor, basically. And this is very important, and for us, and for a game like Dark Money that talks about money laundering, and it's inspired by a lot of investigative work, that detailed, these large money laundering operations that took place all over the world for the past 10, 15 years, and that, have an enormous impact on our democracy. What's important is that you are forced to become that money launderer, which is a scenario that happens, very, very often, and you have to make moral choices. And it's really important in a game to find a balance, So you might play it as a criminal, but how does the crime impact the world around you so that you make your moral choices by being really, really well informed? How does the money laundering affect the educational system of a country, the healthcare system? So all these are questions that you'll have to answer as the player, in this game. Now, this is one example of where we go with our video gaming, but we have here a journalist who has already developed with his team, who's already gamified data and a very interesting investigative process. So Jeff, please run us from a journalistic perspective, through what it means to go from the story to the actual game.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you very much to you and Floodlight for your leadership in this really important and involving space. So as Paul mentioned, we're CCIJ, and here is our website, which is VEZA, that's a Zulu word which means to reveal or to expose. And I just wanted to mention, this is really a product of our team. So this is Serena, The whole team worked on it. Nelly is our products manager. We were together in Kuala Lumpur. This is Fola, our communications and partnerships manager. So the whole team gave input, but really Serena, Nelly, and Fola are the key drivers of the project. Yep. So the investigation that we ended up converting into a video game is called Democracy Deferred. And the origins of this project were in the fall of 2023. Our Africa editor, Ajibola Amzat, brought together members of the Africa Hub, West Africa Hub, that he had convened. Can you please advance? And he asked the members, what stories do you want to tell? And they said, you know, we had this election earlier in the year. The government is saying this is the best election that has come in our country since democracy was restored in 1999, but we know we missed something. We know there's something that's not right. So there were about 12 different newsrooms, about 20 different journalists. We wanted to help stimulate collaboration in Nigerian newsrooms. So we applied for money from the Filecoin Foundation for the Decentralized Web, which Muckrock was administering. We got the money and we set out to tell the investigation. Now the first thing, we started with an editorial, was that the turnout was 27%. And this was the 6th lowest in nearly 1,000 elections worldwide since 1945, since the end of World War II. We also dug in and we found that far from being a really successful election, there was rampant mis and disinformation, there was very serious violations of election laws, there was very major suppression of the vote, as many as 100 people were killed, all kinds of violence at the polling stations, and there was also serious electoral malfeasance. So a member of our team who was from China, she scraped the public website where there were JPEG photos for each of the 176,000 polling stations in the country. And one of the things she found out right away was at 9,000 polling stations, about 5%, there was absolutely no result at all. And there were a bunch of other issues that came out. So we dug deep, we did the investigation, and then we published it. And as we're talking about, we like to try and publish in a variety of different ways. Our publication online, we had online and print publications with all of the partner newsrooms. We had extensive commentary and interaction on radio and television. We had hours-long Twitter space conversations where more than 15,000 people showed up and dialogued. And then we also said, working with Serena, let's go into an experiential and gamified aspect of it. So the first thing that Serena did was called Shield Your Vote. And so in Shield Your Vote, the unit or the player is the voter. And what happens is that the voter starts to get assaulted by all the different forces that we exposed, the mis and disinformation, the attempts at suppression, the possible violence, and tries to fend that off so that then they can cast their vote and support democracy. So that was the first one. Second, Serena was originally brought in with us as a metaverse or immersive reality experience designer. So you can see in this picture, she's putting you in the scene where people are voting. So there's the immersive part that she's created in the foreground, and then the background of the people ready to vote. So we did that. And then we concluded, though, that that's in a certain space on voxels, that we wanted to bring the experience to a wider audience. So we needed a Fortnite island. That was input from the team. And that led us to the game. So I just want to talk a little bit about the audiences that we were seeking to reach. If you can advance, please. The audiences that we were seeking to reach. Now, most of these audiences we were not doing as well at reaching before we did this project. And so it's young people, students and educators, civil society and activists. We've done okay with them, and then casual gamers and digital explorers. And more broadly underneath this, we're seeking both to create a more immersive experiences, to engage audiences and younger people where they are, and then also, as Paul mentioned, to try and generate some revenue. And so here it is, turn complex investigations into interactive immersive experiences. And as we're talking about, and as we saw also with Dark Money, make the audience players in the story, not passive readers. Not that reading is a passive act, but a little bit more interactive. So I just want to describe briefly what you'll see, and then we'll play again about a 1 minute and 45-second clip that Serena put together. So, and those of you, and we're basically just about everybody's in journalism here, so you'll see the game begins with an explosion. So the world, the canyon that we're in is destroyed, the newsroom is destroyed, the player is the reporter, and even after the newsroom is destroyed, perhaps you'll relate to this, who is the first voice that you hear from? Your editor. So the editor says, can you still hear me? And so then the editor gives the reporter a mission. And so the mission is that the truth and the data have been scattered through this explosion, so you need to bring the truth and the data back together, and you will see that the clip ends with a very important moral choice, which I won't give too much away, but basically, do you conceal or do you share the data with different incentives for each? At the same time, as you're going through the game, you'll see themes of democracy and journalistic integrity woven throughout the experience, so that's a way to kind of envelop the player in that experience. Okay, where we want to go is Serena does remarkable work, largely by herself, and I will say this, that Serena is an organic farmer, she's a former chef, she's an artist, and she's our XR Immersive Experience Director. So I say to the rest of the team, I say, I don't compare, but let's be honest, Serena's got the coolest professional background. So what we would like to do is to build a library of investigative games on environment, corruption, human rights, the stories that we do, build a team with and around Serena and Nelly and Fola, and we're looking for funders, we're looking for partners. Here's the different tech that we use, just so you have a sense of that. We can talk about that. Serena's here to answer those questions if people want to talk on that level, either during the session or afterward. And now here is the Data Vault Canyon. Just before Paul plays it, I just want to mention that this is one of multiple levels that Serena and the team have designed, but we just want to give you a little taste of what it's like. Thank you so much.
Hello. Can you still hear me? You remember the voting polls blocked, ballots gone. The fog where voices drowned in likes and shares. Even hidden, our newsroom was struck. The vault shattered, fragments scattered through the canyon. Each fragment carries a piece of the truth. Follow the signal, and we can put it back together. The core of the vault survived, but the data is fractured, files corrupted, logs scrambled. Some fragments still hold the truth. Collect them, and the story can be restored. Even the messengers were targeted. They wanted fear to silence the press, not just the facts. These timestamps were altered. Logs out of sync. Someone wanted this moment delayed, maybe erased. Here it is, a spike. A flood of identical messages across accounts. It looks organic, but it's not. Here's the trail of erasure, files deleted, drives wiped. Someone tried to scrub the record clean. You decide. We can lock the data, keep it hidden. They'll reward you, offer you power, perhaps even the minister's seat. Or release it. Risk everything to let the truth out, including your life.
Thank you, Serena. So we're very proud of Serena and the work. We really look forward to continuing the dialogue. Very grateful to be here on the stage with everybody, and very appreciative of everybody for being here, as well as all the folks at the festival who have worked so hard for us to have this fantastic experience. So thank you so much, Paul, and then over to the rest of the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. These are different approaches that intersect quite a bit. So Jeff and his team, Serena, they work right now with us as well to develop Floodlight, to basically create that space for investigative reporting games, investigative reporting inspired games. Now, it's actually, Floodlight and turning investigative reporting into video games, it's not such an easy project. I mean, we might make it seem like, hey, you just cooperate a little bit, you have someone in-house, and you know, you're able to create games. It's not such an easy process. So let's go to actually the game developers, the people who do, the people who create, the people who can take the investigative reporting and turn it into engaging video games. So Nacho, what should we keep in mind as journalists when cooperating with the game developer, when trying to turn investigative reporting or journalistic stories into games?
Wow, I don't know if I have the time to answer that question fully, but first of all, thank you, because for a gamer like me, being in this kind of environment is so rich. Like, you get to know lots of information, lots of work you do from the investigative journalism, which I've been in touch since we started Floodlight Gaming, and it's amazing. And before I answer the question, Paul's question, I'd like to mention, like, when we think about video games, most of us come to think of Call of Duty, Fortnite, now we've seen, right? But there's a huge market of indie gaming now growing a lot. I mean, there's more than 10,000 games going onto Steam every year, and more, the same with music, film industries, there has been a democratization in how to make them, and then we have lots of people who are bringing on their new talent onto the gaming industry from the indie developer side, right? We can see now in the Game Awards, which would be like the Oscars of video game, that there's more than 50% of nominees which are indie games, right? Not just for indie categories, but also for the biggest ones. Actually, this year we had a winner, which it's not specifically in indie, but it's in between, Expedition 33, which made the whole world shocked with a huge game with very low budget. And I want to say this because it's much easier than we think, as Paul was saying, to create a video game. So what we need from journalists. From one side, we've always been discussing this for a long time. Most of the times, developers or people that we create video games, we focus on two things: developing and design. Most of the studies you'll see around different people that are trying to become gamers or game developers, they study those two things. What happens then? There's a big part in gaming, which is the storytelling, right? How we make these stories be clear, how we merge the stories and we bring them to the public. And the thing is that most game developers are not storytellers. And that's where this mix creates the perfect match. Because you are, all journalists, you are storytellers. You create huge stories, you research, you create data, you create all this backup that then game developers can use to turn that into great experiences. Most of the gamers, as I was saying, we focus on mechanics, we focus on graphics. Most times, we're not that focused on stories, and that's where I think it creates the perfect match, right? But at the same time, to turn a story or investigative journalist into games, it's not bringing everything we have in that investigative work, right? Because most of the times your work is, there's a lot of data, we need to be really clear, precise, whereas in gaming we need to be a little bit more flexible. And that's one of the things we need specifically from journalism, from this discussion that Paul was saying that we have from 1 month of discussion with the journalist. We need to know, of course, all the details, all the secrets of that story, but at the same time, we need that flexibility to make and create and turn all that into game mechanics, right? Games are not to be, or at this point, it's just to create a motivation for the players to start knowing more about this investigation, right? It's not that we need to tell everything that's been happening in the investigation in all the games. Maybe the thing and the key is to create the perfect mix between both sides to make the game be playable and likable, but at the same time providing information, right? As they were saying, whereas other kinds of entertainment are passive, gaming is active. It requires all the time something from the player. It's all the time asking for actions and receiving feedback, and that really creates something different on the players when we're going through these kind of stories, right? And I'd like also to point out that all this work, nowadays, we're seeing many video games which are trying to bridge with different things, not just entertainment. Right? Entertainment has been the main source of, let's say, not just money, but for all games. But nowadays, with all this democratization and indie game developers bringing in the industry, we're seeing other industries being so present, such as health, education, and specifically storytelling. Right? Until now, the most used tools for storytelling, films, books, but now we're able to bring them into gaming in a whole different way. And very important thing, when we think of games, most of the people, especially when I speak about my company, they go, oh, but games are just for children, right? They're just for young kids. They're not, all right? They're not. Average age for gamers, it's over 30 years old, all right? It's a lot. All of us could be gamers at that time. Even people over 60 years old, there are a lot of gamers. And in my company, we're making it really reachable for any kind of person. Anyone can play games now, and even with this kind of mix, it makes it easier because we're not trying to make people play Fortnite and regular Fortnite, but we're trying to adapt Fortnite to create an environment for anyone. I'm sure that most of you might have like, I don't like a lot of video games, but this is the same saying I don't like books. How many books there are? How many different issues, right? And how many different ways of explaining a different story. So gaming is the same. There's games for everyone. There's games where we will all find joy playing them, and not just joy, entertainment, but at this time, this is an opportunity for us to explain stories. Not just joy, but also to bring different information, motivation, and maybe just push new generations into liking and be more present in the investigative journalism world.
Thank you, Nacho. This is truly important. I mean, you know, games, and the motto of Floodlight is gaming in the public interest, fiction in the public interest. Because before we started the project, our partners at Anima Interactive did a poll on the streets of New York where they interviewed young gamers. And young gamers want games with a purpose. They want games that may make a difference. So, but to get to those games that may make a difference, we need the financial support. We need the financial infrastructure. We need to start in a place where, you know, there's a bit of risk-taking. And this is where LOT and the V-Venture and the Veronica Foundation come in.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's so, but when you see the figures, I mean, every investor that doesn't go into the gaming is a little bit stupid, and this was our chance, of course. We're focusing on journalism, but I mean, this is a joke, but I mean, I think that you all, in a lot of sessions in this festival, already talked about the pressure on the system. And I think that we have to rethink things and come up with a lot of new solutions and new ways to reach new audiences, bigger audiences, and earn additional money. And we as an investor, we really look at those opportunities and see where new ideas pop up and see the, you know, the positive side and invest in new ways to make money for investigative journalism, for newsrooms, or share costs. You can look at both sides. And I think, well, a lot is happening already, but I think we need even many more initiatives. And I think, well, Paul and OCCRP are one of the parties that come up with these ideas, and I really appreciate that. We really appreciate that. And we have been looking at these alternative ways to make money, make revenue, and be less grant dependent for journalism, and have been trying to also spread these ideas around the ecosystem. So, for example, as Paul told about Floodlight fiction movies, we also launched a documentary fund for journalistic documentaries, and we try to stimulate especially the research phase and it's kind of the same structure with, you know, everybody can hand in their ideas, and we give some prizes and some development money to the winners. So when Paul came with this idea, we thought, well, this is a really another opportunity for journalism to be spread around in a wider audience, impact maximization, but also in the end a way for journalists to make additional money, which of course is the ultimate aim. So yeah, more or less a no-brainer, Paul.
Yeah, and I should say that this interaction with Lot, with Joop, who's also here
and we need to mention Joop, who is also my team.
In the audience, yeah. Thank you, Joop. So the interaction, you know, helped us design the project, because obviously, you know, the investment experience sits with Lot, with Joop. We don't have that in the journalism industry. So they asked us very, very hard questions. You know, so how are you going to go about that? When are you going to launch to market? You know, we're discussing sales, we're discussing marketing, we're discussing things that as investigative reporters we're not necessarily used to. We investigate those things usually, right? We investigate companies, we investigate commercial enterprises, and now we're becoming one. So we have to go there because we have to sustain the work of these amazing reporters, you know, who risk their lives all over the world. And at the end of the day, this is work in the public interest. So if we can get to the public better through gaming, through fiction film, documentary films, I think that's where some of the answer lies, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's also for the funding community. I don't know if there are any other funders in the audience. I'm afraid not. But it's really important to take more risk in this phase of, you know, of journalism. So, and I want to add to the equation that our investment, we call ourselves an impact investor, also give grants, but very little. Because we think that this is a way also for journalists to think in other ways about the money they're receiving, you know, already taking maybe a new business model or generating revenues in the back of their head. So we also give loans and these kind of things, and we don't want to, so investment is kind of sometimes a dirty word, of course, in the sector, but we don't want to get into journalism or journalistic companies to make a very high profit or a very good exit. Of course, in some of the companies that are already very commercial, we do, because they can offer that without any problems and still give all the services to the industry. But for example, in journalistic organizations, we really aim for a small share, for example, if that is possible with the legal structure of the company, and then say, okay, listen, we're in there for the longer run, and we can support, you know, all this building of revenue streams, generating these things, and maybe in the end it would be the perfect scenario if a company is, with all these additional ideas, able to buy back the shares, for example, and not sell them to friends of, well, I won't.
Well, I mean, Lot is exactly right. I mean, there's a lot of interest in Floodlight. There's a lot of interest, you know, in turning investigative reporting IP into fiction film, video games, and all of that. But some of that interest comes from business people that you don't want to deal with, because, you know, they want to grab your IP or intellectual property and give you peanuts, and then that's that. So, and they create something that you might not even be happy with. You know, like perhaps some of you are familiar with the Laundromat, the movie that was done after the Panama Papers investigation. Panama Papers investigation was an extraordinary experience. You know, ICIJ and OCCRP and, you know, media outlets from all over the world, we worked on that. And it was turned into a film that I'm ashamed of, to be honest. So this is where, you know, Floodlight, gaming, film, SV Docs, you know, Jeff's efforts come in to make sure that what we are going to be launching to market, what we are launching to market, are products that respect and reflect our work, are products in the public interest. We want to better serve the public, and to be able to better serve the public, we need to generate more income to be able to support the entire ecosystem with investigative reporting and generally, you know, with journalism.
And in the end, of course, we hope that a lot of these games that come out of this will be successful and give returns that we can reinvest in the gaming of games of investigative journalism again. So that's our ideal situation. So we're aiming for that.
Exactly. So we'll find out by the next Perugia Festival. We'll find it out for sure, because we're going to launch by the end of the year, the beginning of next year, the games to market, and we'll see exactly how they are received.
Yeah, sure. Just to add a quick thing on how games bring different ways of bringing money into different markets. So different other types of entertainment, their monetization ways are really clear, and it's really complicated to make them evolve. Like how I'm going to pay for a book. Is there more different ways? There are subscription models, but when it comes to gaming, there's infinite options on how to monetize that, right? Nowadays, most of the companies and most of the games that are making more money, it's about using dark patterns, using some kind of ways that we're not as happy to spend our money on, right? But in my company, there's a huge debate when it comes to parents, and whenever I speak to a parent and I tell them, like, would you rather spend 50 euros on a game you think it's gonna give something to your child, or spending 25 in something that will just entertainment and then don't provide? All parents answer they would like to spend double the money to create these kind of experiences and to help and to bring to their kids better products than what they are having. So two things, we still have a lot of people who are already spending money on video games that we can definitely convince them to spend them on better products than they are doing it right now. And at the same time, we have lots of ways, and still lots of ways that I don't even know, and most of the people from the industry don't even know, that we can actually monetize our products. Different episodes, different characters, there's a lot of ways. So it brings a different way of playing into this industry.
I'm one of those parents who spends money on video games for my daughter and for myself, to be honest. So I think we have time for maybe one question. Yes, please.
Yes, hi, I'm an editor of newspaper for children. I work with children in classrooms. Thank you. I use games, but most of them are like how to spot disinformation. So I was wondering, have you considered creating a game that will make journalism cool and it's targeting kids? Because, they're growing up in the age of TikTok. Their parents are not using journalism, not trusting journalistic products anymore. So we would find it very useful to play a game that puts journalism in a hero role so that these children aged, let's say, 12, 14, 15, know why journalism matters. Thank you.
Absolutely, and that's a great suggestion that, we're already working on it. One of the games that came out of the first Floodlight is called Hunting the Hunter. It's developed by Greenwave Studio out of Berlin, but it's based on a story from West Africa that puts you in the shoes of an investigator. Let me just play you just maybe a little bit.
Hey, I'm Bernard.
Tiny investigator
I handle tech
here.
and game design in Greenwave Games.
And then you go about exploring these worlds, you go about investigating, you learn how to investigate. So, we are working, but as you heard here, there are so many ways to actually create in games. And one of the rules of engagement with the game developers when we talk with them is that, hey, so they usually ask, so what are the rules? And I say, there are no rules. There's actually just one. You don't glorify organized crime. But at the end of the process, we as investigative reporters want to be surprised by what you come up with. That I think giving that creative freedom is really, really important, in order to create games that are engaging, games that can speak to children.
No, just thank you for the question, and just to add on to that, that's part of what we're working on with what Serena's doing, and then also at the university where I teach, I'm teaching a course on global journalism and misinformation, and so one of the options I gave for the final project was for students to create a video game environment, and so one of them went very deeply into the issue that you were asking about as well. So I think there is that possibility between what we're doing, Floodlight, of course, and then what young people are thinking about at the university level. They shifted from a topic they weren't working on, they got very excited, so I think there's a lot of possibilities. Thank you for the question.
Last 30 seconds to add on that question. There's a lot of games already, and if you'd like to know, I'm happy to interact after. There's games like Papers, Please, handling, which brings these kind of things to ourselves. Papers, Please, just quick glimpse, it's a game where you're in charge of a border, and you're in a fictional communist country, and there's families coming, and you need to read information and allow them to come or not to come, depending on what you think. But you also have to take care of your family, right? Because you don't have to lose your job. So there's a lot of games that are already in the market, until we get Floodlight Gaming ones that we can definitely teach you.
Thank you, Nacho, Jeff, Lod. Thank you very much to all of you who participated in this meeting.